Everyone laughed when the old man limped into karate class, but when he tied on a worn black belt and moved like water, no one was laughing anymore. The door creaked open just before the warm-up started. Heads turned. Some paused mid-stretch. A tall, lean man with deep lines carved into his face stepped into the room like he didn't notice the shift in energy, though he absolutely did. His name was Otis Renford. He was 74. He walked with a slight limp, his left foot dragging ever so slightly, like it had been trained to move even when it didn't want to. A faded windbreaker clung to his bony frame. His glasses, thick and square, kept sliding down his nose, and his keys jingled a little too loudly in his pocket. The class was full. 14 students, most of them between 15 and 30, stretching, chatting, loosening up. A couple of them exchanged glances. Then came the comment. Low, but not low enough. "He here for Tai Chi or something?" The voice belonged to Trevon Blake. 19. Loud, strong, good footwork. Not great with humility. A ripple of laughter followed. Not everyone laughed, but no one said a word either. Not even the instructor, Jake Mendez, who'd been leading this Tuesday night beginners group for 6 months, just offered Otis a quick wave and kept it moving. Otis didn't respond. No comment, no reaction. He walked to the back corner of the room, set down his water bottle, and leaned his cane against the mirror. He scanned the room, slow and quiet. Watching, taking it in. Jake clapped his hands. "All right, let's run through your horse stances. Lock in those knees. Solid core. Let's go." They all got to it. Even Otis. Without a word, he kicked off his sneakers and stepped out of the windbreaker. Beneath it was a plain, faded grey t-shirt tucked into black training pants. His build, thin, wiry, looked fragile. Some of the students didn't even glance at him now. They were too caught up in themselves. Except one girl, Bryn. 16, new to the class. She kept looking at him, not out of judgment, more like curiosity, like she was trying to solve a puzzle. Jake continued pacing the line of students. Trevon kept stealing glances at Otis, snickering every time Otis shifted uncomfortably or tried mimicking the stance. It was clear Otis wasn't new to movement, but he looked stiff, rusty, like his joints didn't want to cooperate. Jake called the group together to demonstrate front kicks. He stepped forward, snapped his leg up in perfect form, then motioned for them to try it in pairs. That's when Otis walked back to his bag, reached in, and pulled something out. A belt. Dark black. Frayed at both ends, but tied neatly with calm fingers. The moment it wrapped around his waist, you could almost feel something settle in the room. Trevon squinted. "Wait, what? That dude got a black belt." Someone near him whispered, "Man, maybe he bought it off eBay." But then came the movement. Otis stepped forward, rolled his shoulder once, and threw a kick. Nothing flashy, just straight, sharp, and dead on target. Right at the foam target leaning against the mirrored wall. His heel stopped just short of touching it. Clean, balanced, perfect. The room froze. Even Jake blinked, stunned. Otis didn't say a word. He just stepped back in line. Trevon's mouth twitched, but he didn't speak. Not this time. Bryn whispered to the girl beside her. "That was real, right?" The girl just nodded. Otis didn't smirk, didn't look for a reaction. He simply stood, hands behind his back, eyes forward, waiting for the next instruction, the same way he had for years. But this wasn't the end of it. Something had shifted in the air, and not everyone was ready for what was coming next. But while Otis may have silenced the room, not everyone was ready to respect him just yet. Jake tried to pick up where he left off, but it wasn't easy. The atmosphere had changed. Everyone had seen what Otis did, whether they wanted to admit it or not. Still, the routine resumed. Pairs were formed. Trevon ended up with his usual partner, Devon, a college student built like a linebacker, but more bark than bite. Bryn was matched with Mariah, who had a decent stance but struggled to maintain balance. Otis? He didn't have a partner. Jake noticed but said nothing. He wasn't sure what to make of the moment either. Part of him wanted to pull Otis aside, ask who he really was, but pride got in the way. This was his class. He was the one in charge. So instead, he just watched from the corner of his eye, arms folded. Otis moved to the edge of the mat and practiced alone. No fanfare, no noise. He didn't stretch like the others. He just stood there for a moment, then eased into motion. Smooth, practiced, and efficient. Not one movement wasted. Devon nudged Trayvon. "Bro, you saw that kick earlier? That wasn't YouTube fake," Trayvon scoffed. "Old man's got tricks, sure. That don't mean nothing. Bet he gassed out by now. Still moved better than you last week." Devon muttered under his breath. Meanwhile, Bryn was struggling to get her posture right. Her feet kept sliding on the mat, and her center of gravity was all over the place. She sighed and sat down, rubbing her ankle. Otis noticed. He walked over, slow, deliberate, and crouched beside her. That surprised even him. His joints didn't like crouching anymore, but he did it anyway. "Your back heel," he said softly. "It's lifting too soon. Press it down and let the energy drive forward from your hip, not your toes." Bryn blinked. "Oh, okay." She tried again. Her form still wasn't perfect, but it was better. She turned to him, sheepish. "Did I do it right?" Otis nodded once. "Closer." Jake saw them talking and hesitated. Something told him to speak up, reassert control. But again, he said nothing. Otis didn't seem like he was trying to show anyone up. If anything, he was being careful not to. Back on the other side of the room, Trayvon was getting bored. He didn't like being ignored, especially not by someone like that. "Hey!" he called out loud enough for everyone to hear. "Old man, you ever teach, or you just pull that belt out when someone's watching?" Some chuckled. A few grimaced. Otis didn't respond at first. He just turned to face him. Calm, expressionless. "I've taught," he said. "Long time ago." Trayvon smirked. "Yeah? Where? Retirement home?" Devon shook his head and stepped away like he didn't want to be involved anymore. Bryn stood up. "Why are you messing with him? He hasn't even said anything to you." Trayvon didn't even look at her. His eyes stayed locked on Otis. Jake finally stepped in. "That's enough, Trayvon." But Otis raised a hand. "It's fine," he said. He stepped toward Trayvon. Just a few feet. No threats. No posturing. He pointed to the center of the mat. "You want to test something?" he said. "We do it safe. We do it right." Trayvon laughed. "You serious?" Otis didn't answer. Jake looked torn. "I really don't think that's necessary." Otis glanced at him. "Just movement, no contact." Jake hesitated, then sighed. "Fine, just light spar. Keep it respectful." Trayvon clapped his hands. "Let's go, Grandpa." They squared off, and something shifted again. Trayvon bounced lightly on his feet. Cocky. Confident. Otis stood still. Didn't even raise his arms right away. He just studied Trayvon. Watched him like a hawk watching a rabbit that didn't know it was being watched. Trayvon feinted left, then jabbed forward. Otis didn't move. He waited. Second move came. Trayvon stepped in with a spinning sidekick. Showy. Too wide. Otis stepped sideways. One small, calculated step. And Trayvon's foot met air. A stumble. Not much, but it was enough to make Trayvon flush. They reset. Trayvon came harder this time. A flurry of fast, loose punches meant to overwhelm. Otis deflected everyone. No power wasted, just tight angles and blocks that looked more like suggestions than reactions. The room was silent. Jake blinked. Bryn's mouth hung open. Finally, Trayvon stepped back, panting. His forehead was shiny. Otis? Barely breathing hard. He stepped back, bowed slightly, and walked toward his bag. No speeches, no insults. Just calm movement. Trayvon muttered something no one heard and stormed off to the bench, waving Jake off when he tried to say something. Otis sat down, took a sip from his water bottle, and looked around the room. Not judging. Just seeing. But a few weren't done watching him, and one of them had a question she couldn't hold back any longer. The rest of the class went by in quiet tension. Jake kept things moving, but it was clear the mood had shifted. People weren't chatting between drills. The usual noise, the casual laughter, the jokes, was gone. Most eyes kept flicking toward Otis, who stood off to the side, moving through old forms with quiet precision. Trevin stayed on the bench, arms crossed, jaw tight. He didn't say much after the spar. Devon sat a few feet away from him, stealing glances and probably thinking twice about his own jokes from earlier. When Jake dismissed the class, a few people left quickly, unsure what to say. Others lingered, hovering, pretending to check their phones, pretending not to care. Otis stayed seated near the back wall, towel around his neck, sipping water. Bryn didn't leave. She walked over slowly, clutching her gym bag to her chest like it was a shield. "Hey, Mr. Renford, right?" Otis looked up, gave her a slight nod. "Yeah, that's right." She sat down next to him on the floor a few feet away. Close enough to talk, not so close that it'd feel weird. "That was wild," she said. "I mean, how you moved. I've never seen anyone do that in person." Otis didn't smile, but there was a flicker in his eye. "Takes time. A lot of years." "How many?" she asked, genuinely curious. He took a breath. "Started training when I was about 19. Taught classes most of my adult life. Stopped about 20 years ago." "Why'd you stop?" He didn't answer right away. His fingers tapped lightly on his knee. 1, 2, 3. "Things change," he said finally. "Life gets in the way. Some things you let go, even if they still pull at you." Bryn nodded slowly, though she didn't quite understand. She was only 16. Letting go didn't mean the same thing yet. "You were in the military?" she asked. Softer this time. "Yeah," he said. "Stationed in Okinawa for a while. That's where I really learned." She turned fully toward him now. "So you trained over there? Like, real Kyokushin stuff?" Otis gave a faint smile. "Real as it gets." Bryn looked around to make sure no one was listening. Then she leaned in, just a little. "Did Trevon make you mad? When he called you out?" Otis shook his head. "That wasn't about me. That was about him. He needed something to prove. He looked kind of embarrassed. He'll feel worse before he feels better," Otis said. "But if he's smart, he'll grow from it." Bryn hesitated. "You gonna come back?" Otis turned his head slightly toward her. "Why are you asking?" She shrugged. "I just think people could learn from you. Like, actually learn. Not just drills. The real stuff." He was quiet for a second, then asked, "What are you trying to learn?" She blinked, caught off guard. "I don't know. Confidence, maybe. I started taking the class after my dad left. Mom said it would help me feel stronger. I think she meant physically, but I feel like it's more than that." Otis looked at her, eyes steady. "It is more than that. The body learns quick. The mind takes longer." Bryn nodded. "You think I'll get good? You keep showing up. Keep asking the right questions. You'll get better. Good comes after better." That made her grin. Jake approached them finally. He scratched the back of his neck. "Hey, Mr. Renford, just wanted to say, what you did tonight, it was something. Didn't expect that. I think maybe I misjudged." Otis stood up slowly. "No harm done." Jake hesitated, then asked, "You ever think about teaching again? Even just helping out?" Otis didn't answer right away. His eyes scanned the room, now nearly empty. His gaze stopped on Bryn, then drifted to Trevon, still sitting alone on the bench, face buried in his hands. "Not sure yet," he said. Jake nodded. "Well, if you do, the door's open." Otis gave a polite nod. Then he looked at Bryn. "You got a notebook?" She tilted her head. "What for? If you're serious about learning, start writing down what works, what doesn't. Your body's telling you more than you think." Bryn quickly pulled out her phone. "I can type it." Otis raised an eyebrow. "Typing's fine. Writing's better. Slower. Makes you think." She grinned again. "Old school. Works," he replied. He grabbed his cane and water bottle and made his way toward the exit. But before he pushed the door open, he turned slightly. "See you next week?" Bryn gave him a quick thumbs up. But before next week could come, Otis would have to face something he hadn't dealt with in a long time, and it wouldn't be in the dojo. Wednesday morning came with grey skies and damp sidewalks. Otis Renford never minded the weather. He'd lived through worse than rain. He sat at the edge of his twin bed in his small 2-bedroom on Harris Street, pulling on his socks the same way he always did. Left first, then right. Routine mattered. Structure kept his mind sharp. The apartment was quiet except for the gentle hum of his old refrigerator and the occasional whine of the wind pushing against the windows. On the kitchen table sat a black and white photo, faded but framed, showing a group of men in uniform with shaved heads and grim expressions. Otis stood in the middle, younger and broader, hands behind his back, the Okinawan hills barely visible behind them. He looked at the photo for a moment before picking up his mug. The coffee had cooled. He didn't care. Across from the photo sat a smaller frame, no picture in it, just a folded white belt with kanji characters inked on the edge. He never explained to anyone what they meant, not even his brother when he was still alive. By mid-morning, Otis made his way down to Jefferson Park. He liked the quiet path behind the baseball field, where the benches faced the little man-made pond. No one bothered him there. The same squirrels showed up, and sometimes kids passed by on bikes, but mostly it was peaceful. He was halfway through a standing stretch when a voice startled him. "I didn't think you'd really be out here." He turned. Bryn was walking toward him, backpack slung over one shoulder. "How'd you find me?" he asked. She grinned. "You told Jake you liked walking near Jefferson Park. Figured I'd take a chance?" Otis shook his head, amused. "You always chase people down?" "Just the ones who do spinning blocks like it's no big deal." She dropped her bag on the bench beside him. "I told my mom about you," she said. "Said this older guy made our whole class freeze just by standing still." Otis chuckled. "Don't know if that's a compliment or a warning." "She said you sounded like my grandfather. He passed when I was 8, taught me how to punch when I was little, broke our bathroom mirror by accident, and Grandma banned us from practicing inside after that." Otis looked out over the pond. "Sounds like a good man." He was. A beat passed. "Did you get hurt in the war?" she asked. "Your leg." Otis didn't answer right away. "No," he said finally. "Got hurt after, teaching. Took a fall during a bad demonstration. Young guy wasn't ready for the move. I tried to catch myself. Hip cracked. Took years to walk right again." Bryn winced. "Ouch." "Yeah, but the real pain came later." She stayed quiet, sensing something deeper was coming. "I had a student," Otis said slowly, "back in '89. Name was Rico. 17. Fast learner. Hungry. Reminded me of myself. He trained with me for almost 2 years. What happened? His cousin got into trouble. Big trouble. Gang stuff. Rico tried to protect him. Got caught in the middle. One night he didn't show up for class. I found out the next day he'd been shot in a parking lot behind a gas station. Bryn didn't speak. I blamed myself. Thought maybe if I'd taught him better. Faster. Maybe he could have defended himself. Maybe he wouldn't have been there at all if he'd stayed focused." He rubbed his hands together slowly, like trying to warm them up from something cold that never really left. "I stopped teaching after that," he said. "Closed my dojo, gave away most of my equipment. I didn't want to be responsible for anyone else." Bryn swallowed hard. "But it wasn't your fault." "I know that now," Otis said. "But back then, guilt makes you believe things. Makes you pack everything up and pretend you're too old, too tired, too done." They sat there for a while in silence. Finally, she said, "Maybe Rico used what you taught him to protect his cousin. Maybe you gave him something no one else did." Otis looked at her. "You think that helps?" She shrugged. "No, but maybe it should." He chuckled. "You ever think about being a therapist? I thought about being a detective, but now I'm thinking, maybe martial arts teacher." Otis didn't laugh, but there was something like warmth behind his eyes. "Don't be in such a hurry to wear the black belt," he said. "It's not the belt that teaches you anything. It's the time it takes to earn it." Bryn nodded, thinking. But time wasn't done with Otis yet, and soon someone else from the class would bring back more than just ego. The next Tuesday, Otis returned to class. He walked in just before warm-ups like last time. Same slow stride, same calm expression. This time, no one laughed. A few students glanced over and looked away. Trevin sat against the wall, lacing his shoes, not saying a word. Devon gave Otis a quiet nod of acknowledgement. Nothing big, just a small shift in posture that meant respect. Jake greeted him differently this time. Good to see you again, Mr. Renford. Just Otis, he replied. Bryn ran up to him the moment he stepped onto the mat. I brought a notebook, she said, waving it like a trophy. Otis smiled. That's a good start. Class began. Forms, drills, focus. The atmosphere was different now, still tight, but not uncomfortable. A sense of curiosity lingered in the room. People were watching him not out of doubt anymore, but interest, wonder. But as the class moved into more advanced drills, something simmered again. Trevon was off his rhythm. His punches were fast, but his footwork was messy. He kept stealing glances at Otis between rounds. It was bothering him, more than he wanted to admit. He had walked in thinking Otis would never show up again, that the humiliation would be a one-time thing. But Otis wasn't just back. He was calm, collected, and teaching Bryn foot placement in the corner like it was the most natural thing in the world. And then it happened. During a break, Trevon walked straight toward Otis, towel slung over his shoulder. "Hey," he said. "You free after class?" Otis raised an eyebrow. "You looking for more sparring?" "No," Trevon replied. "I'm looking for a real test." The room quieted. Devon looked over from across the mat. Jake stepped in, brows pulled tight. "Let's not do this again," Jake warned. But Trevon held up his hand. "I'm not talking about fighting. Not like last time. Look, I've been training here for almost a year. And no offense, but you made me look like a clown. I've been thinking about that all week." Otis didn't flinch. "And?" "I want to learn what you know," Trevon said. "Not just how to block. I mean how you stay calm. How you read people. All of it." The room held its breath. Bryn blinked in surprise. Devon straightened up. Jake glanced between them. "Are you serious?" Trevon shrugged. "Dead serious. If he's willing." Otis studied him. "You want to learn, or you want to win?" "I want to earn it," Trevon said. For real this time. Otis didn't smile, but something shifted in his tone. "All right." He looked at Jake. "Mind if I use the back mat after class?" Jake nodded slowly. "Go for it." When class ended, the others started filing out, but a few lingered. Devon, Bryn, and 2 others stayed by the edge, pretending to drink water while clearly listening. Otis walked to the back mat. Trevon followed. "No sparring," Otis said. "Just pressure drills. You learn from pressure, not pain." Trevon nodded. Otis circled him slowly. "First, stop bouncing on your heels. You burn out faster that way. Plant, feel the floor." Trevon adjusted. Otis tapped his shoulder. "You keep showing your lead before you move. You're telling me what's coming." Trevon adjusted again. Then Otis pressed forward, inch by inch, talking the whole time. "Breathing? You're holding it when you should be releasing. Don't freeze. Let it flow." Trevon's arms moved to block instinctively. "Better," Otis said. "But your reaction is panic. I need calm. Always calm." For 20 minutes, he walked Trevon through drills. Tight space, close quarter movement, rhythm, and counter-rhythm. Trevon was sweating hard, breathing heavy, but he never quit. And then Otis stepped back. "Enough for today." Trevon looked stunned. "That's it?" Otis nodded. "For now." Trevon stood still for a moment. "Can I come back next week?" "Depends," Otis said. "On what?" "If you come back with your mouth or your ears," Bryn chuckled from across the room. Trevon cracked a smile. "A real one. Fair enough." He reached out a hand. Otis shook it. That handshake traveled through the room. Jake saw it. So did Devon. And Bryn? She wrote something down in her notebook without looking up. Otis grabbed his things and moved toward the door. But not everyone in the building was a student, and the next person waiting to see Otis had nothing to do with martial arts at all. The next morning, Otis was running late to his doctor's appointment. His hip had been acting up again. Nothing sharp, just that dull, nagging resistance that never completely went away. He hated being late. Military habits die hard. The community clinic was a few blocks from his place, and he still walked there most days. Cane in hand, hat pulled low, he liked the feel of the sidewalk under his shoes. Even when his body ached, moving felt better than sitting. He was halfway down Forest Avenue when he heard someone calling his name. "Mr. Renford!" He turned. Bryn came jogging up the street, book bag bouncing against her side. "Didn't think I'd catch you," she said, slightly winded. "You following me now?" Otis asked, half amused. She smiled. "No, I'm headed to school, saw you walking. I was going to ask, do you still have any of your old training journals?" Otis shook his head. "Burned 'em." Her face dropped. "Really?" He shrugged. "Didn't think I'd ever need them again." They walked side by side a few blocks. Bryn kicked a small pebble ahead of them. "I liked what you said last night," she said. "About pressure teaching more than pain. That stuck with me. Most things worth knowing don't shout." Otis replied. "They whisper. You got to be still enough to hear it." Bryn looked at him like she was memorizing every word. Then a car sped past, music blasting, windows down. Otis didn't flinch, but Bryn flinched for him. He caught the motion and gave a quiet chuckle. Some things never change. As they approached the intersection near the clinic, Otis slowed down. His hips stiffened. Bryn noticed. "You okay?" "Yeah, just needs a minute." She didn't push. They stood there for a bit until the light changed. Before they crossed, she said, "I told Trevor I'm glad he asked you to teach him. He's still kind of a jerk, but he listens now. That's something." Otis nodded. "He's learning to walk different." "Walk different?" "Yeah, you train the body first, but sooner or later, the way you walk through the world starts changing too." She smiled, then waved goodbye and jogged toward her school. Otis turned the corner, limping slightly more than usual now. The clinic was in sight. One more block. That's when he saw her. A woman, sitting on the front steps of the clinic building. Late 30s, jacket too thin for the weather. Hair pulled back, but her eyes were tired. She was staring at the sidewalk like it might disappear. Otis squinted. She looked familiar. As he got closer, she stood. "Mr. Renford?" He stopped. "Do I know you?" he asked. "It's Yvette," she said. "Yvette Carr, Rico's cousin." Otis froze. The name hit like a brick to the chest. Yvette stepped forward. "You probably don't recognize me. It's been, I don't even know how long." Otis lowered his cane slightly. "I remember you." Yvette looked at the ground, then back at him. "I was in town visiting my mom. I drove past the old dojo yesterday. Just a bunch of condos now." "Yeah," he said quietly. "I always wondered," she said. "After Rico, after everything, why you disappeared." Otis took a breath. "Didn't feel right staying. Felt like I failed him." Her eyes widened. "You what?" He looked away. "I should have prepared him better." Yvette stepped forward fast. "No, don't you say that. Rico looked up to you. You were the only one who didn't treat him like he was just another angry kid. You gave him something to believe in. That mattered. You mattered." Otis's throat tightened. Yvette softened. "He wasn't trying to fight that night. He was trying to protect me. That bullet wasn't for him. It was for me." Otis looked her in the eye for the first time in nearly 30 years. "I didn't know that," he said, voice barely audible. "No one did," she replied. "Because I couldn't say it then. I was 17. Scared. Thought if I said it out loud, it'd make it real." They stood there in silence. Otis finally sat down on the steps beside her. Slowly. Carefully. "I still carry it," he said. "All these years," Yvette nodded. "Then maybe it's time to set it down." He looked at her, and for the first time in a long time, something inside him let go. Just a little. But setting it down would only matter if he knew where to walk next. And for that, someone unexpected was already preparing a lesson of their own. The rec center smelled like sweat and old rubber mats. The usual pre-class chatter bounced off the walls, but this time it had an edge of anticipation. Otis arrived 10 minutes early, moving with a little more weight in his step. Not just from the hip, but from the conversation with Yvette the day before. He hadn't expected that. He hadn't realized how much he'd needed it. Jake was already on the floor, stretching his back. He looked up and waved, this time with something closer to warmth. "Otis," he said. "Good timing. I was hoping to catch you." Otis walked over, steady but slow. "Everything okay?" Jake looked around, lowered his voice. "I've been thinking. We've got 2 new sign-ups this week. Young, green. I think they'd learn better with you guiding them. If you're up for it." Otis didn't answer right away. "You sure that's what you want?" he asked. Jake looked him square in the face. I wouldn't ask if I wasn't. Otis gave a small nod. All right then. By the time class started, the mat was full again. Bryn was scribbling something in her notebook. Trevor stood near the mirror, practicing foot placement like he'd finally started listening to his own body. Devon gave Otis a respectful, "Good to see you," and took his place. Jake led the warm-up, then motioned for Otis to take over the second half of class. It was subtle, but everyone noticed. Otis didn't boast. He just walked up and started talking. "We're not just learning kicks and blocks here," he said. "You're training attention, patience, how to hold still when everything in your body wants to move." Trevor nodded slightly, absorbing it. "Balance isn't about your feet. It's about your breath," Otis added. "Lose that, you lose the fight." He walked the mat as the students moved through stances, correcting postures with a soft hand on a shoulder or a slight tap to shift a hip. He spoke quietly, but each word landed. His presence was felt now, respected. After class ended, Bryn stayed behind. "Again, I wanted to ask you something," she said, closing her notebook. Otis sat on the bench near the wall, his cane resting beside him. "What's that?" "You said last time that guilt makes you believe things," she said. "What changed? What made you come back?" Otis thought for a moment. "I spoke to someone I hadn't seen in 30 years, he said. "Rico's cousin. She told me something I didn't know, something I needed to hear." Bryn leaned forward. "What did she say?" "She said he died protecting her," Otis said. "That he used what I taught him, not to fight, but to protect." Bryn's eyes widened. "I'd spent all this time thinking I failed him, carried it like a wound that never healed. Turns out I didn't fail him. I just didn't get to see what he did with the strength he had." Bryn let that settle in. She fiddled with her notebook, then asked, "Is that why you agreed to help teach again?" Otis nodded. "You can't carry something forever. At some point, you either pass it on or it turns to stone." There was silence for a moment. Then she asked, "Did you ever think you'd be doing this again? Teaching? Guiding people?" Otis exhaled slowly. "No, but maybe that's the lesson." Bryn tilted her head. "What do you mean?" "You don't always know what you still have to give until someone asks you for it," he said. She smiled, then opened her notebook again. "Mind if I write that down?" Otis chuckled. "Go ahead." Across the room, Trevor walked over. He wasn't smug this time. He looked almost humbled. "Hey," he said. "I was thinking, if you ever wanted to do a Saturday morning thing, like one-on-one work, I'd be down. Just putting that out there." Otis looked up. "You ready to be pushed?" Trayvon shrugged. "Yeah, I think so." Otis nodded. "Then we'll see." As Trayvon walked away, Bryn said, "He's changing." "Maybe," Otis replied. "Sometimes the ones who fight the hardest to be seen are the ones who feel invisible." Bryn jotted that down too. Otis reached for his cane and stood slowly. The mat was empty now. The light overhead buzzed softly. He looked around, then said, "You thinking of teaching one day?" Bryn laughed. "Maybe in 20 years. You don't have to wait that long," he said. But before Bryn could ask what he meant, the next week would bring a moment that tested everything Otis believed about strength, trust, and what it really means to lead. Saturday morning brought a different kind of energy to the rec center. The building was quiet, no group classes scheduled yet. The only sound was the dull thump of sneakers on mat as Trevon moved through a basic form in the far corner. He was early. That in itself was new. Otis walked in with his gym bag slung over one shoulder, not stylish, just old and reliable like everything else he owned. He wore the same black training pants, a white t-shirt this time, and a look that said he wasn't here to waste time. Trevon looked up, nodded once. "Didn't think you'd show." Otis dropped the bag near the wall. "That makes two of us." Trevon cracked a smile. "Been practicing?" "A lot." "Good," Otis said. "Today we see how much of that stuck." They didn't go into sparring right away. Otis started him with footwork. Circles, short bursts, shifting weight from heel to toe without losing balance. After 20 minutes, Trayvon's forehead glistened. "You breathing too fast," Otis said, walking around him like a slow-moving tide. "Control your breath. It's fuel. You're leaking energy with every step." Trayvon nodded, kept going. But Otis didn't stop there. He worked Trayvon through drills that had nothing to do with punching. Close quarters slips, shoulder pivots, silent movement. An hour passed. Trayvon was drenched, shirt clinging to his back. Still, he kept moving, kept adjusting, listening. "You think you're ready for contact?" Otis asked. Trayvon straightened. "Yeah. Light? Like last time?" "No," Otis said. "Real. No takedowns. Controlled impact, but real." Trayvon's eyes widened just a little. Then he nodded. "Let's do it." They squared off. The first exchange was fast. Trayvon was tighter now, smarter. He didn't rush. He watched Otis, tried to anticipate, kept his elbows close. Otis landed a quick strike to the side of Trayvon's thigh. Not hard, but precise. Trayvon flinched. "You're still thinking too much," Otis said. "By the time you decide what to do, it's already done." They circled again. This time, Trayvon moved forward, feinting low, then swinging wide with a hook. Too wide. Otis didn't even block it. He stepped in and tapped Trayvon's chest with 2 fingers. "If I was someone else," he said, "that would have been your jaw." Trayvon nodded. Jaw clenched. They reset. The next 5 minutes were messy. Trayvon was trying to prove something. Each miss chipped at his patience, and it started to show. His punches got heavier, sloppier. And then it happened. Trayvon, frustrated, threw a looping right hand. No structure, just heat. Otis leaned back, but not fast enough. The punch grazed his temple. It wasn't hard, but it was enough to make Otis stumble slightly. Trayvon froze. "Oh, man, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to..." Otis held up a hand. "Stop!" He walked to the edge of the mat and sat on the bench, reached for his towel. Said nothing. Trayvon stood there, awkward, unsure. Should I go? Otis didn't look at him. No. Silence. Trayvon sat down across from him, rubbed his knuckles. One of them was starting to swell. "Does it get easier?" Trayvon asked. "The control part?" Otis looked at him, eyes sharper now. "It's never easy, but it becomes familiar. You learn not to carry your anger in your fists." "I wasn't angry at you," Trayvon said. "I was angry at myself. That's the most dangerous kind," Otis replied. They sat there, not as teacher and student anymore, but as 2 people who had just realized something about themselves. "I lost control," Trayvon said. Otis nodded. "You did." Trayvon waited for more. Maybe a lecture, maybe a scolding, but Otis didn't give it. Instead, he said, "So now what?" Trayvon looked down. "I keep showing up." Otis stood slowly, stretching his leg. "Good answer." He reached into his bag and pulled out a small roll of tape. Tossed it to Trayvon. "For your hand," he said. Trayvon caught it, surprised. "Thanks." As Otis grabbed his cane and started toward the door, he paused. "I ever tell you how many bones I broke before I learned how to keep my hands soft?" Trayvon shook his head. 17, Otis said. "First one was a finger. Thought power came from punching harder. Turns out it comes from knowing when not to punch at all." Trayvon sat with that. Otis walked out without saying goodbye. But word of what happened on that Saturday morning would travel faster than he expected, and someone unexpected would take notice. By Tuesday evening, the dojo floor was crowded again. More students than usual had shown up. Word had gotten around about Saturday. Not just that Otis had sparred with Trayvon, but that Trayvon had walked away different. Quieter. Focused. A few whispered that he looked like someone who'd seen something he couldn't explain and didn't want to. Jake noticed it too. He approached Otis before class, a folded sheet in his hand. "We've got 6 new sign-ups," he said. 4 of them said they came after hearing what happened with Trayvon. Otis glanced at the paper. "That what we're doing now? Advertising black belts who don't talk much?" Jake grinned. "People recognize real when they see it." Otis didn't respond, but Jake could tell he was pleased. Class started. The drills were sharper, movements tighter. Otis had a way of being present without forcing anything. He didn't bark orders or call attention to himself. He moved between students like a quiet current, adjusting a wrist, lifting a chin, shifting a foot. When the group broke into pairs for technique work, Otis called Bryn over. I want you to run this drill with Devon. Her eyebrows lifted. Me? Yeah, you've got the rhythm down. Now teach it to someone else. Devon raised an eyebrow too, but he shrugged and stepped forward. Let's do it. Bryn turned to Otis. What if I mess it up? Then you fix it. That's how you learn. That's how you lead. Bryn hesitated, then nodded. Otis stepped back and watched. She wasn't perfect. Her voice was shaky at first, and her cues came out unsure, but she adjusted. After a few tries, her instructions got cleaner, more precise. Devon followed her lead. A few minutes later, Trayvon approached Otis. Can I help someone too? Otis looked at him. You want to teach? Trayvon shrugged. You said pressure teaches more than pain. I figured the pressure of teaching might do the same. Otis didn't say no. He pointed to one of the new kids, a tall, quiet high school sophomore named Avery, who'd been shadowboxing in the corner, clearly overwhelmed. Start with stance, Otis said. Trayvon walked over and began breaking it down, step by step. For the first time since the class began, Otis took a seat. Jake walked over, arms folded. You really think he's ready to teach? Otis didn't look away from the mat. He's not. That's why he needs to do it. Jake nodded slowly. You ever think about running your own classes again? Otis chuckled under his breath. I ran enough of them in my time. Yeah, Jake said. But none here. Otis glanced at him. You offering? Jake shrugged. We've got the space. Otis didn't answer. Not yet. Instead, he stood again and called the class to attention. Bring it in, he said. The students gathered around, still catching their breath. Even Bryn and Trayvon stood near the front. Otis looked at each of them, one by one. I've been in rooms like this for most of my life, he began. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that everyone walks in carrying something. Pride, pain, anger, fear. A few nodded. Trayvon looked down at his hands. But in here, we don't train to fight each other. We train to fight what we bring in with us. That weight, that noise, that story in your head that says you're not enough, or that you've got something to prove. Bryn's eyes flicked up from her notebook. Otis continued. If you're here just to learn how to hit harder, you're in the wrong place. But if you're here to learn how not to hit when you're angry, how to keep your feet under you when everything's pushing you down, then maybe this is the right mat. Silence settled across the room. I'm not here to impress you, he said. I'm here because someone asked me to show up. And sometimes that's the beginning of change. He let the words hang there. Not dramatic, just true. Class dismissed. People didn't rush out like usual. They lingered. A few shook Otis's hand. Bryn gave him a quick hug before slipping out the side door. Trayvon stayed behind to help clean the mats without being asked. Jake leaned over. You know, I think they're hearing you now. Otis picked up a stray towel. That's because I finally stopped trying to say everything. Jake smiled. Still think you're done teaching? Otis didn't answer. He just looked out over the mat. Empty now, but filled with the shape of something beginning. But beginnings only matter if you know when to let go. And one final moment was waiting for Otis to do exactly that. 2 weeks later, the Tuesday class ran without a hitch. Otis didn't say much that evening. He arrived on time, moved through warm-ups like everyone else, but he stayed toward the back. He didn't give instructions, didn't make corrections. He just moved. Slow, precise, quiet. Jake ran most of the session. Bryn led a drill for the first time, counting out steps with surprising authority. Even Trayvon guided Avery through partner sequences like he'd been doing it for years. There were mistakes, of course. Some off-balance turns, a mistimed strike. But no one lost their cool. Everyone just kept going. Otis watched it all from the bench after drills wrapped up. His towel draped across his lap, cane leaning beside him, water bottle still full. He wasn't tired. Just still. Bryn jogged over after class, cheeks flushed, notebook tucked under her arm. Did I call that drill too fast? She asked. No, Otis replied. You found the rhythm? Let the others catch it, she grinned, looking out across the floor. I didn't think I'd ever be able to do this. Otis raised an eyebrow. You're not doing it. You've already done it. Now you just have to keep showing up. Bryn sat down next to him. Are you still going to come every week? He paused before answering. Not every week, she frowned. Why not? Otis nodded toward the mat. Because now you don't need me every week. She was quiet for a moment. But we want you here. That's different, he said. And I'll still stop by. Just not to lead. From across the room, Jake was talking to the new sign-ups. He waved at Otis, holding up a clipboard. Otis nodded back. Bryn stood. Well, if you're not going to be here, who's going to keep Trevon in line? Otis smirked. That's your job now. She laughed and walked off toward the others, notebook swinging at her side. Otis stayed seated. For a while, let the sound of soft chatter and squeaking shoes drift across the room. When the last of the students began to leave, Jake sat beside him. You sure about this? Jake asked. Yeah. You could still teach. I mean, you've got them listening now. And not just to the moves. Otis gave a quiet shrug. That's why it's the right time to leave. Jake leaned forward, elbows on his knees. You built something here, Otis, in just a few weeks. I hope you know that. Otis looked out over the floor. I didn't build it. I reminded them it was already in them. Jake nodded slowly, absorbing the weight of that. They sat in silence. Finally, Otis stood. His joints were slow, but steady. He reached for his cane and grabbed his bag. Before he walked away, Jake said, I hope you come back sometime. Otis paused. I will, but not to teach. Jake looked confused. Then why? Otis smiled, just a little. To watch. Outside, the sun had dipped low behind the rec center. The parking lot was mostly empty. A few stragglers said their goodbyes. The air smelled faintly of grass and asphalt. Otis found his usual bench, the one just off to the side, facing the edge of the soccer field where, once in a while, kids still played pickup games. He sat down slowly, exhaled. He looked out toward the field, but in his mind he was seeing something else. A younger Rico, shadowboxing beside a punching bag. Bryn turning through a form, her shoulders finally relaxed. Trevon pausing before a strike, not to power up, but to think. Moments. Just moments. But each one meant something. A voice called out from the distance. Mr. Renford! It was Bryn again, standing at the double doors. You left your towel. He waved it off. Keep it. She raised an eyebrow. Why? He called back. Because someone's gonna need it after the next round of drills, she laughed and disappeared back inside. Otis sat back and rested his cane across his knees. There were no final speeches, no certificates, no dramatic goodbyes. Just a quiet moment. A man, a bench, and the knowledge that what he'd carried for decades, both pain and wisdom, had finally found somewhere else to live. Sometimes the hardest part of teaching isn't getting people to listen. It's knowing when to let go. Thanks for watching. If this story moved you, share it with someone who might need to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe for more powerful, human stories that remind us what really matters.